Well, let's speak now to Yoseph Haddad. He's CEO of the NGO Together Vouch for Each Other, which describes itself as independent. He's in Nazareth. Thanks for joining us. What do you make of this announcement then that there is going to be a ceasefire in about half an hour's time, we're expecting?
Yeah, well, obviously we all want a ceasefire. This is the entrance of the Israeli people as well for the Palestinian people. I think that we support peace and we want to see the suffer of the innocent people end. I hope that the terrorist organization, the Islamic Jihad, understood that he must not engage and to provoke Israel and the IDF, because Israel must protect its citizens. And when I say Israel must protect its citizens, I do mean the Arab and the Jews who live here in Israel. As well, by the way, the Palestinians who suffer from the Islamic Jihad as well, and Hamas.
And what do you think the chances are of this ceasefire holding? I mean, we've seen ceasefires come and go, haven't we, many times in the past?
Yeah, well, it depends, because until now, the Islamic Jihad did not achieve anything, actually. While if we go to see what's going on within the IDF and Israel, practically the whole commanders of the Islamic Jihad were eliminated. Israel and IDF was very precise on the target, keeping as much as possible innocent life from being hurt.
Well, hold on a second. You say they were very precise. 43 people have died, including 15 children. 300 people are wounded. They've been targeting apartment blocks, which are in residential areas, very densely populated residential areas.
Yeah, well, you know, it is. I'm very glad that you actually mentioned that, because Israel targeted terrorists, not children and not innocent people. And in fact, Israel has evidence that the kids who were killed, they were killed by Islamic Jihad rockets who fell down on their own citizens. Now, we have to keep in mind two things. One, that they actually launched those rockets from the civilian area. And second, not only that they launched these rockets from their own civilian population area, but they also launched it towards the Israeli citizens, the innocent Israeli citizens.
You know that the apartment, the Palestinian Tower apartment block, when it was hit, that there were civilians that were caught up in that. The target was Islamic Jihad, as Israel says, but you know that there are other people in that area who have been affected, people who have been killed and wounded in that area. I mean, Israel has one of the most sophisticated armies in the world, and yet it is bombing a single individual, it's bombing a whole apartment block, is affected by this.
Well, I'm very happy to hear this question, for the only reason is that when it comes to deal with terrorism, we see time after time how Israel and the IDF actually talking to the people in Gaza, requesting for them to evacuate the buildings. Which army does that actually? What we're seeing right now is something that that doesn't seen by any other army in the world. We call the people in Gaza. We tell them, evacuate the buildings, we're gonna strike that buildings. No army in the world does that. We've seen this in Russia and in Ukraine by the Russian army. We've seen by any other army in the world.
Why are still people dying? Why are people being caught up in this? Why is there still the collateral damage, as people describe it?
Because, unfortunately, the jihadic Islam or Islamic Jihad, they are using those people as shields. They are the one who put the rockets in the civilian area. They're the one who are endangering the life of innocent people. Israel must protect itself. Israel must protect its citizens, the Arabs and the Jews here. And Israel as well, they're the one actually trying as much as possible not to harm innocent lives, while the Islamic Jihad and Hamas doing completely the opposite. I mean, think about it. In what common sense you put rockets in a civil area? Who does that? Why do you do that? You know, in fact, that if you launch a rocket from that area, you will get struck back, and you put your own people in danger. This is quite unbelievable. You know what? It's not me even saying that. I have so many friends in Gaza, so many friends that they call me and they told me about the destruction there is. And I was surprised because they're talking about the destructions from the actual missiles from the Islamic Jihad.
So are you claiming that all of these 43 people who have been killed in this latest violence, you're saying that's the responsibility of Islamic Jihad?
Most of the people who were killed by Israel are terrorists. Point. Unfortunately, of course, and I pray for every innocent life, but during a war, casualties there are, but Israel is actually responsible for the minimum of the minimum, especially in this operation. But you know what's fascinating to see is the fact is that the world media are not talking about how actually the Islamic Jihad is committing a war crime, actually a double war crime. One, for targeting innocent people in Israel, and second, for actually targeting their own people. And everybody is silent about that and not even talking about it in a perspective of worldwide. But if it was actually Israel who were responsible, you would see it absolutely everything in every headline around the world. By the way, for instance, take Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera, despite the fact that there are journalists from Gaza who specifically said that there are rockets that fell down from the Islamic Jihad into
Israel. We're running out of time now, I'm afraid.
Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. We're running out of time now. There are many people who would disagree with you. We will speak to people on both sides of this argument. As we say, that there is a ceasefire which is expected to come into force in about half an hour's time. That was Yoseph Haddad from the NGO Together Vouch for Each Other. You're watching BBC News. In the last hour, a landmark bill which includes billions of dollars to fight climate change has been approved by the US Senate. This is the moment the legislation known as the Inflation Reduction Act passed after a marathon overnight session during which Republicans attempted to stall its passage. The $430 billion package also includes